Here with me today is Kathryn McDonald, who specializes in creating wonderful photography of building interiors in and around the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. Kathryn's photographs capture moments her clients are proud to show of a product you'll want to touch or a room you want to be in. She's known for her expertise in guiding clients to get images they didn't know were possible but are happy she got for them. A professional freelance photographer in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 20 years, Kathryn's work has appeared in local and national magazines, interior design portfolios and annual reports, as well as on her website, of course. Kathryn also has a background in web marketing and SEO. She works with visually oriented small business clients, creating search-friendly, aesthetically pleasing websites that are high-functioning and speak to her clients' design sensibilities. So hi, Kathryn, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really honored to have you here with me today.
Hi, Nigel. It's so nice to be here today. Thanks for having me.
In today's episode, we'll be talking with Kathryn about her commercial photography and how she helps business owners, especially those in a creative or a visual type of business, use photography to enhance their own marketing. What is it about creating interior photography, because I know that's what you specialize in, that makes you get up in the morning? What gets you excited about it?
I've always loved especially home spaces, but spaces and how design can transform a space. The thing that never ceases to amaze me is how each designer that I work with has a unique way of interpreting a space. They can take an empty room and have this vision, and the opportunity to make beautiful photographs of it, just get to show up and see it personally, and then create compelling content of that room or that space for them that elevates how they can present it to their clients and help them get work and tell their story. I just find that fun and exciting. I love seeing new fabrics and new furniture. I love architecture. It's just always been something that inspires me and interests me. And so just the opportunity to work with these people that have this creative vision, and then me being able to enhance that for them by seeing angles and details with the way I see things, is really a fun collaboration. I really enjoy that process. So that's what gets me up in the morning when I'm thinking about doing a shoot.
And I love that phrase, interpreting the space. That's the interior designer, their way of transforming essentially a box, a room or whatever, into something that is aesthetically pleasing, not just to them, but to their clients. And, your job of capturing that and going in there and actually translating that 3D image of a beautifully set up room or building and translating that into a two-dimensional photograph that still conveys that same feeling is quite a challenge, I would imagine.
It is a challenge. The interesting thing is especially when I work with newer, younger designers who are on a pretty tight budget, they've attempted to photograph their projects themselves, often not getting the results that they hope, because they want to make it look as appealing and high-end as possible so that they can continue to grow their business and get higher-end clients that have bigger budgets. It's interesting how you can do that with the choice of an angle of what you choose to include or not include, how you crop and frame a shot. It's fun. It's a bit of a puzzle, and it's fun to help make that happen for them. And I just get a charge out of that when I'm in a space and trying to interpret it. Often what I do is I go through and I'll just do hand quick grab shots of angles I think are going to work. And then we look at the computer together and go through what works, what doesn't work, and then narrow it down so that I'm shooting images that I know they're going to want. But also it's my chance to look at test out angles, what I can possibly come up with that's going to make it even better, a better interpretation of what that space is.
Before you ever go in there and start taking photographs of a space or a building or whatever, I imagine that you can't just get a phone call from an interior decorator on a Monday who says, "Hey, I've got this space I need photographing. Tomorrow morning or this afternoon. Just hop on down there. It'll be open. Just go in, take some take some photos. I mean, do you spend time talking with the designer or the decorator to get to know their sort of own sentiments about what they're doing and how they approach what they're creating?
It's less about the conversation that we have. It's will we work well together if our temperaments are a good match? So they will explain to one degree or another what they're hoping to accomplish, but I can often tell from just looking at their work on their website what their aesthetic is. I never shoot with them not there. Either their assistant who worked on the space or the interior designer is there. I would never show up to a space, or let's put it this way: it almost rarely or never happens that I would shoot a space and the interior designer would not be there. Partly they're styling it and propping it as we're shooting the space. They're also agreeing with angles that I'm choosing. They're hearing why I'm choosing that and why I think something works, or they're telling me why they want to do something, which is great because I want to hear what they have to say. So it's never, I can only imagine that happening, me showing up to a space with someone without the designer being there, if I have a very long relationship with them and we trust each other a lot. And I know I'm going to get images that I think are going to work for them.
I mean, really, this is the same for most areas of photography, I suppose. But in this instance, it could be tempting to think, well, you're just going in and photographing, the layout of a room, maybe how things are set up. There's a sofa, there's a chair, there's some cushions, some window treatments, a table, and so on and so forth. But there's really a lot more to it than that. You're trying to convey, almost like a portrait artist would convey the personality of a person. It's almost as if you're trying to convey the personality of a room.
I would say yes. You're interpreting the details, and often they're subtle, but there's a lot of details that convey the client's personality, the interior designer's interpretation of the client's personality. I think what distinguishes interior photography from, say, real estate photography is often shot with a very wide-angle lens, and it's meant to just show the whole room, what's in the whole room, and it can make the space even look larger than it is because you're using such a wide-angle lens, whereas interiors photography, in my mind, is you are in some cases showing a fairly large portion of the room, be it half or three-quarters of the room. But and some real estate photographers, depending on the real estate photographer, may argue this with me, but I feel like you're using a tighter lens when you're shooting an interior. You're starting wide, you're going into half, you're going into a quarter of the room, and then you may be going into a very tight detail because you want to tell the whole story from someone walking into the room and then someone experiencing the little details, the trim on the sofa, what fabric was chosen, the pillows, the accessories, all that stuff. And I feel like real estate photography is more just about showing the space and conveying the rooms. This is all about the essence of the room and the details of the room.
Once you've got the raw images, as it were, I mean, do you do much in the way of post-processing to those images to enhance them or bring out more details, or do you believe more in leaving things as they were in the camera?
I shoot as close to the image as possible, meaning the crop and the composition. However, there's always going to be details that I call visual noise. There's can lights, there's light switches, there's electrical sockets, there's cords, which I try and tape up and get out of the shot so that the retoucher doesn't have to do that. But there's always going to be visual noise that distracts from the design and the composition. So as I'm shooting, I'm keeping in mind what the retoucher can, or they're amazing. They can do a lot, but I'm shooting so that I'm minimizing the amount of work my retoucher has to do. So I may do shots with a light on or a light off so that there's not glare in the glass or on the stone of the fireplace. There may be glare. And so I'm having my assistant go in with a card and block certain areas or cut a big beam of light off of the floor so that as I'm shooting, I'm thinking all about the post-production as well. In some cases, a designer may want to change a color of a wall or a carpet or insert a piece of artwork. I find that much more challenging in terms of keeping it looking real, because I'm always My goal is to continue to make it look real, not overly digitized, but there is a certain amount going on so that the eye stays within the photograph and doesn't get distracted by. I just did little weird details. I just did a shot this weekend where there's these weird garden faucets, for lack of a better word, sticking out, and my eye would go to that. So those are the sort of things I'm thinking about, how I'm going to retouch them out and how it's going to be interpreted. So there is a certain amount of post-production, and I'm absolutely thinking about it the whole time I'm shooting all the images.
Yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of food photography in the sense that there's a certain degree of styling that goes into all of this, not just straightforward real estate photography where you which I suppose might be considered the journalistic cousin of what you do.
Yeah, we are moving the furniture. We're trying different angles. We're moving accessories to see what works and what doesn't work. It's absolutely styled. We're trying to show that room at its best and the designer's work at its best, because it is ultimately still going to be a marketing or sales photograph. So you want to make it look appealing. You want a person to say, I want that room. I want to be in that room. That room is so beautiful and peaceful. I want to be there.
We mentioned already that most of your clients are interior designers or interior decorators and that kind of thing. How difficult is it for you, as a marketer of your services, to sort of educate these people about the benefits of the photography that you will actually create for them?
Sometimes I feel like they educate themselves by either trying to photograph a project themselves. I do have one client who is actually a very good photographer. He has a wonderful blog and does beautiful photography, but he does still hire me. In other cases, they just don't have the technical knowledge to get the images that they want, and they need to bring in someone that has more experience. And also an eye. It's surprising to me in some cases, I do see interior design websites where they don't use professional photographers, and it shows. It degrades the look of their work. They're not looking at color temperatures of lighting. They're not looking at perspective correction, which makes an enormous difference in that sense of order that you want to have in a photograph of an interior. They don't look at details. If you're shooting a bathroom, is the toilet seat up or down? Funny things like that you look at it and you go, why didn't they think of that? But it does come from experience. And some designers are more detail-oriented than others, but it makes a huge difference, all those little details that come together.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot of, especially from architectural photographers and real estate photographers, indeed, is that they tell me that, it's becoming increasingly harder for us to market what we do because our prospective clients are becoming more satisfied with what you might consider to be good enough. They're not willing to push the boat out, to invest in premium services so much where you go into all of this detail and sort out all of those little annoying distractions and so on. They're more just happy with, it's good enough. Now, did you come across that kind of mindset at all?
I would say probably. I don't often end up working with those kind of clients. I have streamlined the way I work. I shoot as much available light, which allows me to work more quickly and get more shots. I do always a combination of available light and added light, strobe light. In some cases, all strobe light because it's a room without daylight. But I think you can see when good photography is present. Those are the kind of clients that I want to work with. I have outsourced a lot of my retouching. I have a retoucher in San Francisco, and I have a retoucher that I work with in Indonesia. And depending on the need, it helps me just include in the cost of the price of doing the photography certain components so that it's very clean and easy to say, this is what it's going to cost you. This is what it is per image. There's less interpretation for them. And it makes it easier for me to streamline how I'm presenting it and keep it economical, because there is a lot of downward pricing pressure that I experience. There's a lot of competition in San Francisco where I am with other interiors photographers. So yeah, I would say there is pricing pressure, and I think there always is.
hopefully there's always going to be those people who will appreciate the quality of what you do and will always pay those premium prices. So we can hope for that at least.
I do think there are. And there are people, when they get busy enough, they don't want to do it themselves, or they want to have someone, a trusted vendor that they can just hire because they know they do good work. They know they're going to get quality. There's not going to be a lot of hassle.
So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about marketing and, getting the word out about the type of work that you do. Which marketing channels have you found to be the most productive for you in terms of acquiring new clients?
I think, like all marketing, it's multiple channels. For me, mostly it's been SEO on my website, people finding me for Interiors Photographer San Francisco. It is referral from happy clients or consultants that work with interior designers, and they make recommendations of photographers, and then those people go to my website and like the work that they see, and we have a phone conversation and we talk and see if we're a match for each other. Some social media, I'm active on social media, but not as much as I think I should be. I do post occasionally. I don't post images of projects as often as I would like, because often I want to allow the client to have first right of publication. And if they're trying to get a project published or some images published, if it's been published on the web in any form, the publisher or the blogger may not accept the work. So I have at least a 6-month embargo on most of the images that I shoot, so that it gives them a chance to be the first ones to show the work to people. My intention is to go back to projects that are 6 months or more old and start posting more of those in social media. I just stay active in Facebook and LinkedIn and occasionally Pinterest, just to keep my name in front of people, so that if a photography referral comes along, they know someone that needs photography in the genres I shoot, they may think of me just because I happen to pop up in something. So it's more presence of mind, not necessarily exactly relevant content.
And that's an interesting point you made about putting an embargo on posting images on social media. I remember when I was doing some commercial work several years back that the company I was working for explicitly stated that I could not use the images that we created for them because they represented a proprietary process. I don't suppose you come across that kind of thing too much, for what you do, but I can certainly see how the clients don't necessarily want these images out there in the wild until they're ready to put them out there themselves, which obviously creates a little bit of a sort of a social media backlog to what you're doing.
It's something I try and be sensitive to, because I have a relationship with those clients and I understand their need to want to be the first, since it is their work and their project. I still maintain the copyright to all my images. And at some point, if they're not actively utilizing the images, I feel like I'm within my reasonable boundaries to then start showing the work on my website or in social media. And I may just choose 1 or 2 images. I wouldn't necessarily show the whole project. There is a social media website, I would call it a social media website, that's industry specific to interior design, called House. And it's an opportunity to post images of your work as a photographer and interior designer. I've become more restrained on how many images I may put up. I won't put a whole project up because of perceived terms and conditions of who owns the rights if it goes onto a social media channel. And I want to respect the client's use in some way. But I'm kind of struggling with that right now. But I'm cognizant of it and thinking about it as I'm making decisions about putting new work on the website and how I'm going to use it to promote myself and still honor their needs.
And do you ever come across opportunities for licensing certain images that you take outside of the project that you originally created them for? So, let's say, you create a set of images for an interior designer to showcase one of their projects, but then you find that a local magazine likes the images too and would love to publish them in, let's say, an article or something like that.
Yeah, that does present itself sometimes. I do license work that way. I was with a stock agency for a while, but the rates for stock became so low that it didn't seem worthwhile. And it's also a lot of work to actually get stock up on a site with all the property releases and so on. So I've just chosen not to focus my energy as much as I'd like to. I haven't focused my energy on that because it didn't seem like the end reward was worth it as stock rates dropped. But there are occasions where I'll get contacted for a particular image because there's a product in that shot that the actual vendor is interested in, or the image is appealing for other reasons to different people. So yeah, it does happen. It's not a big part of my business though.
Going back to marketing, what about networking, actual physical face-to-face networking with potential clients? Do you get engaged in a lot of that type of activity?
I do. I don't do it super overtly. I like to go bike riding and I like to do meetups, and often you just meet people, and in the course of conversation they'll ask what you do and you ask what they do, and there's opportunity there. I also do more business specific networking where I'll go to marketing. So there's national and local divisions of marketing, the American Marketing Association. I'll go to that to stay in touch with other marketers. Definitely interior design events I will go to so that I'm meeting new interior designers. I'm staying current on what's going on in that industry. I feel like it's just about meeting people and having conversations. And as the relationship evolves, they think of you. I usually, if I've met anyone face to face and we've had a reasonably lengthy conversation and there was some sort of connection, I'll link with them on LinkedIn so that I can continue to stay in touch with them.
I was lucky enough to be asked by the American Institute of Architects several years ago to photograph some of their events, like award ceremonies and things like that. So I got to be a kind of a fly on the wall to some of the inside of that, and it was fascinating. I mean, I was first of all blown away by the quality and the sort of breadth of designs that these architects were putting together, but also it was just interesting to be able to meet and talk with people who I wouldn't normally be able to get in touch with. And I'm not an architectural photographer by any means. I mean, I don't do that, but it was really interesting to see that whole networking thing going on. And I photographed for the Sales and Marketing Society here in Memphis for a while, and that was another good opportunity for that. And I think, a lot of photographers kind of miss out on a lot of that stuff because they get stuck behind their computer screen too much.
Yeah, because it's about building trust, and it's about building that relationship. And when you're on the set with someone, you want to have a good rapport, you want to have a nice relationship. And I can see as I shoot, say, a first project with a new client, there's maybe a little ambivalence and they're not so sure of me. But as they end up liking the images, I can see the ease that evolves with the next shoot. And the next shoot, ideally, as the relationship builds, there's just a trust and an ease, and it makes working with someone more fun.
Do you also find that your kind of sphere of influence, if you like, expands beyond just the interior designers that you work with into areas like local upscale art galleries and upholstery people, specialists in their field and specialists in window treatments or furnishings and that kind of thing?
I do have clients that are in that industry, but they're not interior designers. They seem to also understand the value of good photography in marketing their work. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. I do engage with them. It can be via a referral from an interior designer, especially an interior designer that I photographed one of their spaces and the product from that vendor is in their room. And sometimes that evolves into a photography relationship or a marketing relationship. Yeah.
I think that's something that people listening to this might want to bear in mind, that it's a good thing to try to extend the tendrils out to different, I guess you might call them circles of influence away from the core business, because oftentimes those network connections kind of circle back around and can create all kinds of new and beneficial relationships. So I'm really glad to hear that's actually happening for you, which is awesome. Now, I've one question left before we finish up, and asked this to several people on these podcasts, and that is because I'm a Doctor Who fan, basically. So if you had your TARDIS, your Doctor Who time machine, and you could travel back in time to when you first started out in this business, what advice would you give to yourself?
This is a great question. The one that I wish someone had told me when I first started out is don't try and do everything, despite the fact that you might not have a lot of money. Build your team early. Get your retoucher, get your bookkeeper, who your assistants are going to be. Anything that you can outsource so that you can keep your focus on the creation of your work, keeping current on trends and technology and the business of what you're doing. And you can get other experts to handle on a freelance basis parts of your business, the better off you'll be. You'll be more focused on what you're doing. You'll have less stress because you may be saving money, but it's kind of penny wise, pound foolish. I would say build a team early of other experts that are going to support you in your business so that you can turn to them and you can keep the focus on what is important, which is building the business, building the relationships, and marketing yourself.
And, really, I suppose it boils down to, treat the business like a business.
Exactly.
It's not a hobby anymore. It's a real business. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn. This has been really interesting. I've really enjoyed our chat together today, and I really hope that people listening to this have got some great nuggets of inspiration out of it. You certainly have some great work going on, and you do some wonderful photography, so I wish you all the very best with it.
Well, thank you, Nigel. It's been a pleasure being here. I'm honored that you asked me to do it, and I hope it's beneficial to the listeners. It was great chatting with you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.